All right, I know this looks like the work of a madman, but perhaps I am mad. But this all makes sense in my head, and I will just, it is very simple, all right? So ultimately life is just, everything is just about life and death, ultimately. Ultimately, that is when we look at it from human nature. If we look at nature, it is existence and non-existence. And if we look at human life, human nature, then it's life and death. All right, but metaphorically, it's the same thing. It's essentially the same thing. When in doubt, I always go back to Heraclitus. I always go back to Nietzsche, Epicurus, Hermann Hesse, Albert Camus. In some sense, Dostoevsky as well. So those are my, greatest. Now look, fulfillment, all right? Fulfillment, life fulfillment. You gotta realize that a lot of things are just simply in the language of everything. And it's very simple, right? I even wrote it here. Language clue. Fulfillment. What is it? Fulfillment. I know it's not two L's here, but it's still full, all right? It is the full human condition, experiencing the full human condition. And when we're talking about the full human condition, this means great health. Otherwise, there is no meaning in great health. Striving towards greater health all the time, never denying our human nature. That is the great health. And when we deny something, that is unhealth. So I wrote it here. You see, health, you have struggle, all right? So essentially, we're dealing with the problem of life. We're essentially dealing with the problem of life. Actually, this up here, I wanted this to be its own thing, its own lecture. But in some sense, everything is connected. So that's why it looks like this. Everything is connected. So ultimately, fulfillment, and I wrote here true life satisfaction, but it's the same thing. Fulfillment, true life satisfaction, or just satisfaction, doesn't matter. It is still the same thing. Now, I put true here because true means that you capture all areas of life. True doesn't, what's the opposite then? What's false? Well, false is unhealth. That is the false life, because that is death. That is not life. So you see, that's false. So that's why true life satisfaction, all right? But true life satisfaction lies in creating meaning. Why? And it goes back to immortality. It always goes back to immortality. Because we don't want to die because we're life. We don't want to die because we're life. That is why we have this in us, all right? Nature created us that way. So life is a struggle against and moving away from death. You see, unhealth is death. So we have this struggle moving towards health all the time. So ultimately, that must mean that fulfillment is about all areas of life and enhancing all of those. So that's why I'm against all forms of asceticism, actually. Except, that's why I spoke of ascetic humanism, because I made it paradoxical. It's ascetic because you have the role of self-discipline for creating meaning, and that will give you satisfaction, so you keep the humanity in you. You keep the humanism. So that's why I said ascetic humanism, but I kind of want to avoid the word ascetic in some sense, because it is not just the connotations of Christianity and other things. Actually, it means to exercise. So technically, we could pull it out of that connotation. But still, most people, I want to keep language easy, simple, I want people to understand everything here, everything. I want people to understand all of this. So we look at it this way, but then you see, ultimately, it's about health because this is a desire. You see, we can start from satisfaction, all right? We all want life satisfaction. We all want fulfillment, all right? So we start from that. And then we can go, what is satisfaction and so forth. But satisfaction, we can go backwards as well. Satisfaction is a desire we have. And when we fulfill this desire, we feel better. We are better. Our health is better. Feeling better, it's not just about physically being active and fitness and all of that. That is part of it, of course. That is the body. But it's also about the mind. It's the body and mind. And ultimately you want life satisfaction. But life satisfaction and fulfillment you can never escape struggle. You can never escape struggle. That is why Buddha was right about that. You cannot escape struggle. Even if you're the richest person on earth. I mean, look at Bill Gates. I can still see some human struggle in him. Perhaps he's not struggling the same way as most people, the masses, but still he has struggle still, always. Doesn't matter how much money you have, you will always have struggle. Life fulfillment doesn't mean becoming a billionaire. It can be part of it, but it can't be full fulfillment. You see, it can't be, that is not the full human condition. It is an area, but it's not the full. Do you understand what I'm saying? So you see, it's very easy. So it's basically like Hermann Hesse, all right? So actually, so I don't forget that as well. Book recommendation, Siddhartha. All of you have to read Siddhartha and also realize afterwards, after you read it, I hope you realize that it's the full human condition there. He experienced everything, similarly to Buddha. I think we'll get into that a little bit later. But first, let's look at this, all right? So, always returns to this. All of this is human endeavors. You see? Exactly. It always goes back to health, and then desire, and passions and so forth. So that is creating meaning. I put creating meaning here because ultimately, when you're creating a book, for example, or you want to create an empire, or when I say empire, your business empire or something like that, or even a country, perhaps you, especially in history, you wanted your people to love you and so forth. So you want it to be immortalized, remembered. That is the ultimate reason why we create things. And so creating meaning, all right, that will be, true life satisfaction. But ultimately, that is creating your life as well. So that's why, all areas of life. So creating meaning means creating meaning for yourself, creating meanings for others, either directly or indirectly. Some of us are more indirect, like I am, for example. And others are more direct. They want to help people directly, and others indirectly. I'm doing everything here indirectly, actually. Now, obviously, I like to help people directly as well, but I am more of a indirect nature because I'm just like that, the philosophical type, the intellectual type, the artistic type as well. I like my distance, all right? I like my distance. I'm not denying this. You see, I understand myself better than anyone, and you actually understand yourself best as well. Either instinctually or, consciously. Now, what else? All right. So ultimately, we look for immortality. We want to be remembered. You see, so in some sense, you cannot escape validation. There are some people that want to escape societal validation. Then you have to escape society. And then escaping society, you escape the social, and you escape a part of humanity. So you leave a part of humanity and you move towards unhealth instead of health. You see, it will become a struggle that way as well. Of course it is. You see, struggle goes both ways, health and unhealth. So that was the brilliance of Andrei Tarkovsky, my favorite filmmaker. When in Stalker from '79, that's also a great movie. That's my, in my opinion, the greatest movie of all time. You all have to watch it. And Pisatel, the writer, you can also read the book, Roadside Picnic. It's quite different, but it's also great. It's a great book, but the movie is better, of course. But actually, that's not of course, because most books are better than the movies. But in this case, it's the other way around. So the writer in the movie says, what do I write for? What do I write for? If I already know that I'm a genius, why do I write? I wouldn't have a reason to write. I can just keep everything in my mind. So, and actually that's what I'm precisely not doing anymore. Usually this would have been in my notes. I have like over 5,000 notes now in my phone, and I have some other notes, but I don't want to put notes. I want to have it in one place. So I try to avoid putting notes on everything, unless I just get inspired and I have to put it down. Now, that's a whole thing in of itself. That's a whole skill in of itself that I could teach. I will teach that, but I will teach that in a course. So what do I write for? Yeah, exactly. So essentially I'm talking about myself here as well. So I'm seeking validation as well here. I'm not denying that. I will never deny the truth. The truth is always what's freeing, and not just freeing, but I love the truth. I always love the truth, even if it's a dangerous truth or it would be, catastrophic. I still love it. It's still better than the opposite. For me, truth is health and life. So look. So what do I write for? Even a pessimist like Schopenhauer, he still wrote so that he can show the world I existed. So I immortalized myself. He immortalized himself through his work. So you see, that's indirect there. But if someone finds meaning in his work, that is creating meaning here. So as soon as you awaken someone, a movie, or it can be a play, it can be anything, it can be a philosophy, it can be thoughts, ideas, concepts, it can be from science, philosophy, it can be from almost anything, it can be a ballet even. If it ignites something in you, and especially if it's in art, it's best explained in art, through art, because art has this feeling that you have afterwards for a long time. So for example, like Stalker, I've had Stalker within me for a very long time, and that is a masterpiece. But not just a masterpiece, that is a way of creating meaning even after his death. Tarkovsky's death in '86. He still created meaning. You see, he died, and yet I was born in '89. I wasn't even born. My sister was born, and yet he gave me meaning after his death. You see, that is immortality. You see, that is immortality, or the closest we get to immortality. When I say immortality, obviously when the universe dies, everything dies. But we're talking about, in human nature here, human time span here. And of course, we have only fragments of Heraclitus left, such as character is destiny, or a man's character is his destiny. Ethos, anthropos, daimon. But it's an important one, but not just that, it is it is a way of him becoming immortal. Now you might say, yeah, but that's just, we have a fragment, that's just luck, you know. But it's not luck, he put it down in a book. Or they say it was a book, but who knows. But he put something down. Otherwise, these historians in the past, or people in the past, they wouldn't have mentioned him. All of these, we have enough evidence to understand that he existed. We don't know much about him, but it doesn't matter, we still have a little bit, and those fragments are enough to understand his philosophy. Now, and he has given me meaning, for example. You see, thousands of years afterwards, like it's 2,500 years afterwards, he still gives me meaning. So that is immortality. He's remembered. He's always remembered. Nietzsche, always remembered. Amor Fati, Camus, always remembered. All the greats are always remembered. And yes, I've been obsessed with the greats and immortality and all of this for a long time. So you see, it is a validation of sorts. It is to show I'm here. All the greats have this. Look, I lived. Look, I lived. Look at how I lived. Even Alexander the Great. It doesn't have to be an intellectual or an artist or a philosopher. Intellectual. It can be an athletic guy like Michael Jordan. Ultimately, Michael Jordan went after basketball to become immortalized. Always remembered. That is the same thing when I speak of legacy. This is the same thing. All right, so we'll speak about discipline a little bit later. I'll just get this down first. So in some sense, I think Jordan Peterson spoke of something like, you gotta let a creative person be creative. But this is true, but it is also true for athlete. You gotta let an athlete to become an athlete. So you gotta allow intellectuals to be intellectual. To be myself. You know, when you say, I wanna be myself, that is exactly it. And health and unhealth, you know, when you're allowing yourself to be this and focusing only on this, like I am right now, you go towards health. And when you're denying your own self, this part of you, it is unhealth. So yeah, Jordan Peterson is right about that. And me doing all of this is the meta. I am the meta here. And ultimately, all YouTubers, all people on YouTube, they all seek validation ultimately. They all want to be remembered, immortal. They all want to do this. And that is true life satisfaction. Moving towards health. They also love doing these things. They're obsessed about it. The same with creative people. They're obsessed with creation, and intellectuals about intellectual stuff. They're obsessed with it. It is good. That is a good obsession. That is a good obsession. And you have fulfillment, and that is the active life when you start creating things as well. And when you're unhealthy, you still have desires and wants here. So, for example, when you say, I don't feel like doing this, but then you struggle and you want to move away from unhealth. I don't want to do this. I want to be in a different state. So you move towards health. So I don't feel like doing this. That is a form of suffering. But it's still a passive life here, ultimately, when you're just dreaming and thinking stuff instead of doing them and sharing them. Exactly what I said earlier about my notes. Usually I would have just put all of these in paragraphs in my notes and just kept it within myself. And ultimately, that is unhealthy. That is a passive life. Because, and you see, you see, that's the whole thing, you know, you think you're a genius, or, you know, you think, it doesn't have to be genius, but you think you're great, all right, greatness. You think your thoughts are so great, but you don't understand how great they are, or if they are great, until you put it out there and you see what people say about it. So you see, it's ultimately validation, back to validation again. You can't escape validation. You do this in everything. You do this in everything. Michael Jordan had validation, as well. He sought validation from others because we live with other people. You can't deny the social aspect of humanity. You can, but you will be unhealthy. Always, 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 always. So you see, that's why there are 3 purpose principles. The first is, of course, helping yourself, aiding yourself, pulling yourself up, elevating yourself, elevating others directly, and then elevating others through a medium indirectly. So you see, those are the purposes. Now, the problem of life. So essentially, fulfillment. What is it? It is, we're dealing with the problem of life. And it's not a problem anymore. I've solved it, all right? Usually, people just say, philosophers, usually they just go, yeah, this is the problem of life. Let's nuance everything and so forth. And yes, you can do this, but I'm not here to obscure. I'm here to make it clear. I'm here to shine a light on health, because I don't believe most philosophers have done this. Of course, they've talked about health and well-being, ataraxia and so forth, eudaimonia, but it's not the same thing. They still went away from that and went into virtues and you should be this and morality and this or that. It is not about morality. It's about your health. That comes first. That comes first. Your subjective experience. And that's the only thing we can't doubt either, by the way. So you can't doubt everything. Solution, all right? The solution is striving towards health. And there is always strife in this. Strife, should be strife. Strife or struggle. And that's from Heraclitus, strife. He always spoke about this. Strife is the ultimate, it's king, it's the ultimate thing, and it's true. It is. And Buddha also talked about that. So that's not a new thing. It's been around for thousands of years, but it's still correct. But I'm not, Buddha, he focused on struggle, and human suffering there. And in some sense, Nietzsche as well. And Amor Fati, and loving that. And Camus went also kind of after this, but also went into the questions of this and philosophy. Should we live? He went, should we live? And I'm saying, yes, we should live. And Nietzsche said also, yes, we should live. But the difference is, full human condition is one of the differences. That's from Hesse. Now, obviously, Hesse, he instinctually said this, but he didn't philosophize it. He didn't put it like this. But also the difference is also not just striving towards this, that is also Nietzsche, but I put all the emphasis on health. So I put all light on health. I shine rays on health. So that's the difference. So I put something extra here, higher desire. So ultimately, creating meaning is just higher desire. And when people say procrastination and always doing that and never achieving your dreams, that is lower desires. You're always after your lower desires, instant gratification, as people also call it. And procrastination is just delaying your higher desire, which is creating meaning and creating things in life. Now, I think, these are universals. Most feel this, but some people don't feel this. So all people are not born to be great. So that's you can't change that. That is just how it is. As Heraclitus also said, the few are the great and the masses are not. So Nietzsche also said this. So this is nothing new here. So that is not something we should, but without the greats, you don't have the masses, and without the masses, you don't have the great. It's all the one, it's all together, it's all a dynamic like that. Let me also talk about the role of discipline. So the role of discipline in this creating meaning, the role of discipline has its role in this creating meaning here. So that is how you remove the procrastination thing and your lower desires and focus on your higher desire. You do that through discipline, through a philosophy. That is the philosophy I've created, the practical side of my philosophy. This is the theoretical side. The practical side of my philosophy gets to this. It's basically here, the role of discipline, and the practical, the rhythms, the basically rituals, the routines you have in life, and all of that is here, discipline. And then you will create your meaning and your work and so forth. And in a better way. Now there are, in a better way because health, all right? In a better way because I've put health in it as well. So it avoids, so someone like Bukowski, the poet, now he smoked and chain smoked and all that. So, and he still created, meaning for a lot of people anyway. I don't like his stuff that much, but for a lot of people, he created meaning. So, I'm not denying his intelligence, of course, but we all have, different taste. So, role of discipline. Although I like some of his poems, actually. So, I'm not gonna bash Bukowski. He's pretty good, but he's still not one of the greatest. There are better people. There are greater people there. It's like comparing, he's not Michael Jordan of poets. Anyway, so, but I'm not talking just about popularity there. It's not about popularity. So discipline. So I put, I focus everything on health. So the discipline thing also, it has to include health. Everything I do here has to include health. That is the ultimate thing here. That is the meaning of life. I already see this as meaning of life. So I don't have to ask the question anymore about the meaning of life. I've moved on now, finally, after like 14, 15 years of meaning of life. I've settled. You see, I've settled after so many philosophies and going through all of the philosophies and thoughts and ideas and all aspects and everything. I finally settled on something. You finally settle. At some point, you finally settle. Otherwise, you can't move on either with. And in some sense, I haven't settled because this exists. But I'm trying to put it all together, So discipline is super important, but not for the sake of discipline. That is also important, but for creating meaning, because then it has a direction, it has a purpose. But otherwise, it's just meaningless. You're just disciplined for nothing, for yourself. But you see, why do I live then? Why do I write? What do I write for then? You don't write for yourself, all right? That's a dead end. I've already been through that. That is a dead end. Like I said, this would have been in my notes, but that's just nothing. I will be nothing, and I will never be remembered, if Michael Jordan just kept all of these basketball dreams within himself, he would have never inspired, he would never created all this meaning in life. All these young people who love Michael Jordan wouldn't have been inspired and wouldn't have started with basketball themselves. So you see, that is how meaning gets created, even after death. Now he's still alive, so he's still creating meaning, but now obviously he stopped playing because, age. But also, discipline is also not for the unreal, which is ultimately unhealth. It is ultimately inhuman. You're striving for the impossible, perfection, or, like most people say, God. So I'm all for reality in nature. We strive for what's real here. The truth, what's real. And even if there is a God, you still can't get there. All right, you still can't get there, even if there is. So you're striving for the impossible there. So that's why monks. I'm thinking of monks here a lot, and that's the wrong path. because, and same with Buddhist monks as well, by the way. It's not just Christian monks. Because you're just, in some sense, you're torturing your all your other sides. If you're a monk, you know, you're torturing your social side in the partner aspect of it. So and that is unhealth. You're denying yourself this. Now you should deny yourself lower desires, but you shouldn't deny yourself higher desire. You see, this is where health lies, creating meaning. That's where health lies. In some sense, I made meaning. I made life the meaning of life. I made meaning. I made meaning also at the center of everything here, because you know, life and meaning can only exist in life. So I made meaning the meaningfulness in some sense. So I made the meta important. So in some sense, I cheated. Sometimes I feel like I've cheated on everything here. Sometimes it feels like I've cheated here, as if I just cut through, you know, I hacked the system. But it's true, you know, you can't say that I'm wrong. That's the crazy thing. It is that you can't say that I'm wrong. And perhaps you might think that this is just obvious. But if this is obvious, why haven't anyone put it out like this? And not just that, but if it's obvious, why do we still struggle? Why don't we have a guide? Why don't we have a manual for how to live? The ultimate manual for how to live. That is what I'm creating here. This is that. This is the theory. Now, obviously, it looks like a madman wrote this, but it is written by a madman. But I will have to put it in a book. I'm gonna put it in a book as well, so that will be more structured. But in some sense, you know, life is complex, so it is very hard to structure things. You see, perhaps it's very hard to be God, to structure things, to create things. It is hard. It is hard to create things. It is hard. You always try to do it perfectly. I used to have this perfection thing, always. You see, in some sense, that's why I'm against perfection. It's better to just put it out there. It is just better to do that and not just wait all the time. You see, procrastination. You see, procrastination. Stop procrastinating all the time. And relax more and focus on creating meaning. Focus on your health. You see, health is above creating meaning. Health is always above. You yourself is more important. If something goes wrong, if there are principles. So you see, here are more practical stuff. Like if you feel like something is wrong, you're getting stressed out and so forth, even if you're trying to create meaning, then something is wrong. You have to go back to your first purpose principle. Always go back to your first purpose principle, which is your own health. You yourself, you help yourself first. So you fix your diet. If you screwed up on your diet, you fix your diet again. You screwed up on your rhythms of life, you know, habits. You redo this and you try to find your habit and so forth. You focus on yourself. That is much more important. And then others, you know. When this is stabilized, then you go creating meaning to others, which is ultimately immortality and remembering you. It doesn't matter what we're talking about, that is the truth. You know, Stephen King. Why does Stephen King create books? You might say, yeah, fame, money, status, the social, or even, you know, artists with, rock artists with women and sex, rock and roll. You might say all of that, but ultimately, it's none of that. Ultimately, it's immortality. Ultimately, it's remembrance. Jimi Hendrix wanted to be remembered for being Jimi Hendrix, and he is. He accomplished that. And he creates meaning all the time. Every time someone loves his music, he creates meaning. You see, every time Bach is dead, he's still creating meaning. I'm still listening to Bach. So as long as I live, he will have meaning. As long as others live, As long as all these people live and still reading Kafka and reading, listening to Bach and so forth, as long as this is happening, there is meaning still, and there is still life in them through their work, of course. And that is the closest we get to immortality. And this is what we seek because we don't want to die. We want to move away from death. Death here, unhealth and health, ultimately life, ultimately death. And we have this struggle. We have this struggle in life. Now when we're dead, obviously we don't struggle anymore in death. You see, that's why death is perfection to me. Death is perfection to me because in death you do nothing. That's the ultimate passive life. It's not life, it's death, but it's the ultimate passiveness. And life is the ultimate activeness. So that's why when we enhance life, we enhance the characteristic of life. And that's literally greater. That's literally what it means, greater and great. You have good, you have normal, and then you have greater and greatest and so forth, and genius and beyond, That's making it more extreme in some sense. You're making life in some sense more extreme, in some sense. And in some sense, I'm making, philosophy extreme here. I'm putting everything on health. So in some sense, that's also extreme. But without the extreme, we can't understand these things. We can't move beyond. Without the extreme, we don't know what the limits are. When we go extreme, we're striving towards transcendence in some sense, but it's not transcendence in the sense that it's perfection. In some sense, you are seeking perfection because in some sense we're all gonna die. So in some sense you're moving away from death. You're trying to move away from death by living life and fulfilling life. So making it as great as possible, but then ultimately you will die and you will reach perfection in death. But you will never reach perfection in life. You will never reach perfection in life because it's a struggle. There is no such thing as perfection in life. We know this from science. We know this from everything. Scientists can't create a perfect sphere. They've tried it. It's impossible. So you see, there is always an error. There is even error in time. We know this now. There is error in time. So meta, the meta is me. I'm doing this. This is the meta because I'm putting the lens on, through philosophy, I'm observing everything. So that's the meta there. Fulfillment, happiness, it's the same thing, basically. I mean, ultimate happiness. I'm talking about ultimate happiness, not just lower desires or just immediate, temporary happiness, but creating meaning. And if I can become immortalized, that is true happiness. For intellectual types, me doing this is for me happiness. Because I'm an intellectual type, and for me this is happiness. Doing this is not a struggle. I mean, I love doing this. You see, I love doing this, and I do things. You see, does. I put does here. So I don't just want, I'm doing the thing. So you see, that's the difference also. Again, the creators and uncreators, non-creators. But I love doing this. Now, obviously there is struggle in this always, but amor fati, I love my fate. And my fate is my fate because my character is my destiny. I change my character and I change my destiny, but ultimately the type I am, intellectual and creative, I'm both. Now obviously I love athleticism as well, but still, it's mostly intellectual and creative. I love those two things. And if I'm not allowed to be myself, to be intellectual or creative, and even somewhat athletic, I'm unhealthy. I will be unhealthy. So what I'm doing right now is health. What I'm doing right now, a philosopher philosophizing means he's healthy. Because he loves this, all right? So that's where passion and all of that comes in there. That's where it comes in. So it is still true. It's just that people make it up to be something easy And in some sense, you know, when you love what you're doing, the struggle is easier. Nietzsche said this. There is a quote by Nietzsche there. You know, if you have your why, you can almost endure anyhow. Amor fati. All right. So amor fati, destiny. So you love fate. Your fate. You love your fate. And I do love my fate. And but I'm not fatalistic in that sense, all right? But I don't, you know, I love my past, I love my present, I love my future. I don't hate my past, because without my past, I wouldn't be in my now, in the present, and I wouldn't be something constantly towards the future. Because, you know, it's always in the present, but we're always moving towards the future all the time, as long as you live. So, but ultimately, I love doing this, and I'm just moving more and more towards life, towards creating, towards fulfilling my life, fulfillment. You see, creating meaning ultimately when this makes sense to people, and people understand it, but not just understand it, take it to heart. If I awaken people, if I help someone, that is why I live. All right, that is why I live. That is why ultimately anyone lives. But I'm just, you know, speaking from the intellectual type, but it can be athletic type as well. So, of course, you have the, like I said, indirect type, direct type. So, someone likes helping, you create meaning. When you're helping, you're creating meaning. But indirect type, you know, you help others through a medium. And direct type, you help others immediately, you know, directly. So that is that. And so yeah, I just want to say also that, you know, you see, we keep, well, in terms of human nature, we still keep determinism. So character is destiny. But we also keep, where is it? We also keep free will. Willing yourself towards change. That is free will. So you see, we keep all these things. I'm not denying free will, I'm not denying determinism. And we have determinism from cosmos perspective as well, of course. We're human beings, so ultimately you can't look at it from cosmos perspective, but when we try to look at it objectively, determinism seems to be the way, you know, and that's amor fati again, because Nietzsche talked about eternal reoccurrence. So if you play back the universe all the time, I would still do this all the time. Every time I would do this, you know? This video would show all the time, every time. And in some sense, that is immortality. You see, perhaps that's why Nietzsche, you know, loved or liked the idea. He didn't say it is like that. He said, he basically, you know, he spoke about amor fati, but that's loving your fate. That's from the human nature perspective, but eternal reoccurrence is more his, you know, it is a form of interesting concept of immortality. And if it was so in some sense it's amor fati, but in an extreme sense, because it's amor fati over and over and over and over again, all the time, ad infinitum, infinitely. So you see, he truly has amor fati. He truly has amor fati. He truly loves his fate. Because even if it's extreme, over and over and over and over and over again, you know? And I'm looking at immortality here, but, you know, life. But life, his creation, his book, like Thus Spoke Zarathustra and so forth. All his books, all his work. He's still creating meaning, you see? Nietzsche still creates meaning after his death. All the time. All the time. So, fulfillment, what is it? What is it? It's easy, all right? It's the full human condition. You experience all areas of life. Full human condition, it is all areas of life. When you deny one area, it doesn't matter if you have almost all areas. When you deny one area, you move a part of you towards unhealth, even though you move most of yourself here. But that's why you will be in the middle then. So that's why you will never reach that kind of, extreme amor fati like he spoke of, like Nietzsche spoke of. You see, we connect everything here, Nietzsche as well. That is how Nietzsche comes in. And yeah, by the way, I wanted to talk about that. Like, you see, we keep amor fati, we keep character and destiny, we keep all these things, happiness, truth, we keep health, we keep everything, struggle, Buddha, we keep Buddha here. Life is struggle. Yeah, we have Buddha here, you see? Nietzsche is here, amor fati, Buddha is here. Now I'm here, basically, health here. And desire, usually I think of Hume here, slave to your passions. Nothing wrong with our passions. Nothing wrong at all. Without it, we're not human nature, all right? Always capture the full human nature, full human condition. It's the same thing. All areas of life. The full human condition. You see, it's always in the language. Otherwise, we wouldn't understand what we're talking about. So, fulfillment, what is it? Yeah, that's that. And you have Hesse here, basically. Full human condition, in some sense, is Hesse. I'm not sure, he wouldn't have said that perhaps, but I'm saying that. I'm saying that is Hesse because that is what he did with his books. Ultimately, that's what Michael Jordan did. He strove for immortality. We're for life here, for striving towards health, for struggle. We can't deny struggle. If we avoid something here, if we put something out here, even one area or something like that, even this, we will have lied. So the whole point here, I want to make sure that I'm seeking the truth because I'm the intellectual type. I love philosophy. I love this stuff. And like I said, why did I create this? And why create this? Well, it is for myself because I love it. I enjoy doing this, but not just that. The whole mission is in creating meaning and helping others and awaken people, and then there is mission accomplished if I've done that. And even more so if I've done that after my death, even more so. But both. Because when I'm alive and I've done it, then my life is just greater health. But if it's like Kafka, it is unhealth, especially in the subjective experience. But Kafka created meaning well after he still creates meaning, As long as people read his books, he creates meaning. So as long as people watch my videos, I've created meaning. So you see, in some sense, someone has to watch your stuff. Otherwise, what's the point, Back to validation again. What's the point? Am I just talking to nothing? And if I just keep all of this inside of me, like I always used to do, what's the point? I'm just torturing myself. I never release anything. I never release myself. And psychologists are in a lot of ways correct there about that stuff, Keeping things inside is terrible. That is unhealthy. Torturing the core. So you see, that's how I get there. So Michael Jordan, why did Michael Jordan do what he did? For immortality. He just went for immortality. He wanted to be remembered forever. And that's why I am doing this, in some sense, to all, it's all the meta. It's the meta, I'm doing this because of that. I'm just making the observation here. But not just that, I'm also doing it. I'm both observing and doing at the same time. And that is a rare thing. Most people don't do that, all right? Most people just reiterate things others have said. And the point, this is more the practical stuff here, in some sense you can avoid the theoretical stuff. The theoretical is behind or beneath the practical. The practical is what we're doing in life. But the whole practical is, you know, focusing on desire, having the right mentality, and having discipline here, having fitness and health and all of that, training and all of that, so that it enhances and helps creating your meaning, so that you finally finish that fictional book or, you know, play or whatever it is, or a song. Perhaps you want to be a DJ. So you train and stuff so that you finally finish that DJing work and all the songs and all of those things. All right, that's the purpose. That's the purpose. The whole purpose of the philosophy is to aid this. So that's why I've created all of these things I've created, so it helps you move onward in life. It's not just about health and fitness. Well, it's about health always, but fitness and training and all of that is for your body, but also mind, but not just mind, it's also beyond you. So you see, in some sense, there is transcendence, because it is for this creating of meaning, this creating for others and creating after your death even. So you see, that's the closest we get to transcendence beyond ourselves and so forth. And we use discipline and fitness and all that to help this, to aid this, to remove our lower desires, to remove procrastination so that we get it here, higher desire. You see, that's why I call it higher and this lower. All right? That's why I call it like that. Now I got mixed up there in colors, but. So yeah, I hope I've been understood here and not misunderstood like most philosophers. That's why I removed problem and solution here, because, you know, life is not a problem. We're not anti-life. We're for life. We're for life. For life. I don't know how much clearer I can make this. Perhaps I could make it much clearer, but I mean, if there is a question, you just ask, what do you mean by this? Or what do you mean by, you know, love doing this, or something like that. We can go, you know, I will just go deeper and deeper into this. The longer I work on this, I will go deeper and deeper and deeper into this. But I feel like I have to reiterate some stuff and put it out there like this. I have added some stuff like this here and connecting character's destiny, but I actually did that before. Character destiny, and you change your character, you change your destiny. I already talked about that. So that's part of, you know, life. That's part of the process. That's the process here. There is a process thing. You know, it depends on what we look at, you know. If we go from health, or we look from the desire, or we look from satisfaction, or we look from meaning and so forth. We can put meaning here and then go from there. But ultimately it's from health and we go from there. And well, technically existence and subject. So technically existence and then subjective existence for humans, for conscious being. And then health, technically. Because behind everything is existence. Behind everything, right? And then even behind that, perhaps we have a formula for, you know, the formula of change, or, you know, but this is like a formula for an understanding of why we do things and why we live and so forth. So that's the whole point. That's the whole point. Not just for my own, you know, fulfillment. This is for my own fulfillment, but also for other people. It is both at the same time. And also after my death, even. I can say hopefully, but I will make sure that it is. I will make sure that it is. So you see, I want to avoid, you know, fake humbleness. I am the intellectual, I am, you know, but I'm not Michael Jordan. You know, we all have, of course, our, you know, strengths. And this is my strength. You utilize your strength. You know, I love these, you know, patterns. We have many patterns. In some sense, actually, Michael Jordan knows a lot about basketball patterns. So you see, we're all pattern seekers. It's just that I love doing this when it comes to meaning of life. And that's the thing I've done all my life, you know, meaning of life. Behind this lies the question and the desire of knowing the meaning of life for me. But that's why I do philosophy that matters in my you know, in my senses here, you know. For me, I try to do philosophy that matters to people. I think this matters to people. Life satisfaction, immortality, fulfillment. Perhaps this is more instinctual. Perhaps you don't feel, you know, don't want to be immortal, but in some sense you do. You know, you do want to be immortal because you don't want to die. I'm just making you aware of things, and so I am here to change minds. You know, I am here to change minds. I am here to convert people to life, to you know, a philosophy of life that truly goes to life, and not just, you know, oh, this is a problem, this is that, you know, making it more simple, and not just, you know, of course life is not that simple, but it is simple. All right, it's both simple and complex. We make the complex simple. You see, we get both. We don't deny any of it. We don't deny simplicity. We don't deny complexity. We don't deny that we're universal. We don't deny differences. We have differences in sex. We have differences in, you know, ethnicities. We have differences in everything. We don't deny anything. We don't deny the human condition. All right? We love the human condition. And by saying that, that includes struggle. We love struggle. See? That's how we love struggle. But it's important to do things and not just want things, not just dream things, but doing things. That's the most important. But that's why the practical comes here, the higher desire, focusing on that, and discipline. Even this is perhaps even more important, because, you know, discipline yourself and creating yourself character, and then creating your destiny, because you're creating your character, and you know, fitness and all that. So I can give you all the strategies and all that stuff, but if you don't understand the philosophy, then the discipline is just a discipline for the sake of it. The philosophy is important, otherwise you don't understand your behavior and what you're doing. Otherwise you don't understand this. Why am I creating? But with the philosophy, you understand you're creating for immortality. That's the theory, all right? And you can, of course, ignore the theory and just go with, how do I discipline myself? But you will never be able to discipline yourself until you understand your purpose and what you're doing. So you see, I want to awaken people's purpose. I want to make you aware that your life is your purpose. Your health is your purpose. That's the whole thing. That's the whole thing. I know I say a lot of the time that that's the whole thing, but that is truly the whole thing. That's the purpose of the philosophy. But the purpose of life is not that. My philosophy is not the purpose of life. The purpose of life is health. So you see, but it's connected to this. So you see, I've observed the purpose of life through my philosophy. So you see, the tool, that everything goes within everything. It gets too meta sometimes. Sometimes it gets too meta. But I hope I've been understood here, and that will be it, I think. That will be it. Maybe I will keep this a little bit and before I remove it, so that I might, you know, something might come up. Fulfillment. That is what fulfillment is. If you still haven't understood what fulfillment is, you can always rewatch. You can always rewatch everything and just keep on going and rewatching and so forth. And almost like an eternal reoccurrence. And yeah, that will be it. See you in the next lecture.